We want to introduce Audrey Redmond, a survivor who we met earlier this year during Teen Chats, and we were so lucky to get to know this summer at the Teen Heads Up Conference. And we're excited to bring back Dr. Sam Blackman, the co-founder of Day One Biopharmaceuticals, our holiday webathon sponsor. Sam is also a pediatric hematologist oncologist who not only is passionate about finding a cure, but is committed to providing information and improving communication with families. So we're super excited to have you both here tonight. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Sam. Hi, Audrey. And why don't you each tell us a little bit about who you are and what the brain tumor community means to you? And then you guys can chat. But Audrey, I'll kick it to you first.
Hello, I'm Audrey. And just to start with what CBTF has been for me was I had gotten diagnosed and I didn't really know what could be out there for me. And my dad had found out that there is a whole vast community for me. So being able to go on social groups and seeing how many other people that had similar problems I've had was so amazing. And just being able to see everybody and make really great friendships was honestly the best thing for me and was able to make me feel so much better.
Oh, that's great. That community is just vital for all of us. Thank you, Audrey. Sam, how about you? You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Sam Blackman. I am a pediatric hematologist, oncologist, and neuro-oncologist, which I did for a while, and then I stopped doing that about 15 years ago to move into a career in cancer drug development, and I've been doing that for a while. And about 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to start a company that had really been something I'd been dreaming about and hoping to see come into creation one day, which would be a company whose sole focus was on developing new therapies for children with cancer, because that has been the dominant theme and driving passion of everything that I've done in my life professionally. And that company we called Day One Biopharmaceuticals, named after something that I learned very early in my career when I was a fellow at Boston Children's Hospital in Dana-Farber, how to conduct what's called the Day One Talk, which is the very first discussion that you have with a patient and their family about their diagnosis. And I didn't know whether or not Day One would ever actually be able to find a drug that we could develop or what would happen to it. It was an opportunity that I wasn't going to pass up on. And much to my surprise and delight, here we are still 4 years later. We are 120 people now. We have found our first molecule called tovorafenib that is not approved by the FDA, but we're working hard to see whether or not it could be approved by the FDA as a treatment for children with the most common form of pediatric brain cancer, the pediatric low-grade glioma. And we've been thrilled over the past number of years to get to know the team at the CBTF and the whole CBTF community and be a partner with them as we try to move our program forward to hopefully to FDA approval and making it available to patients around the country and hopefully around the world one day.
Oh, thank you. And we are thrilled for all that you're doing for us, Sam and Audrey, for just being such a leader and instant part of this family. So I know you two we'll let you two take over. And I know you had some questions that you're going to ask each other. So we look forward to getting to know you.
Terrific. Audrey, do you want me to start?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, super. So I thought that it might be good to talk a little bit about, if it's okay, talk about your experience, maybe a little bit about your story, because I'm not sure that everybody here necessarily knows your story, but I think it's, from what I learned about you, it's really quite remarkable about the way that, having a brain tumor has transformed your life and how you've sort of grown with it, through it. And I just think it's such an inspiring story. I'd love if maybe you could walk us through it. Maybe you just tell us a little bit about it, because pediatric low-grade gliomas are, a lot of times people think that they're, and I hate to say this because it's my least favorite phrase, that a good cancer, but I don't think there's any such thing as a good cancer. And I think talking about the impact that the diagnosis had on your life would be remarkable. So maybe you want to just walk us through the story how you even ended up in this crazy world of pediatric brain tumors.
Yeah, so about last year, I'd say around September 15th, I'd gone for an ophthalmology appointment just to check on my eyes. I was losing some vision, which I didn't understand what it was. So we went to ophthalmology, found out there was a mass in my brain. So we went straight to ER and like got the MRI and was like, oh no, something's not good. So I went over to CHLA and I stayed about a month there, but I've gone through 2 surgeries. One of them to remove a brain tumor that about the size of a lemon on my optic nerve. And it's called neuroglioma, something like that. I'm terrible with names. But I lost about 80% of my vision in my right eye and a bit in my left. And I went through radiation therapy. Luckily, I did not have to go through chemo. But other than that, I've just had to deal more with visual impairment and just a bit of the typical memory issues and other the such. But for most of the journey, I was kind of unaware, but able to go through it with a positive attitude because I was more thankful that all these people out here were able to help and cure my disease, which was really amazing for me. But after that, I've gone more for looking at social groups and, seeing what else can be done to help me. So that's about it.
No, that's terrific. Thank you for walking us through that. One of the things that we talked a little bit about yesterday, was some of the changes that invariably have to take place. I have a patient who I took care of a long time ago who's now 18 or 19 years old, and she had an optic pathway tumor as well. And one of the things that she said to me last year when we were talking, that was really it just really struck me. She said a lot of her friends just didn't understand why she had visual impairment and why they just couldn't fix it with glasses. So she would have to read, textbooks up close or look at her phone very much up close. And her friends didn't understand. And when she said, well, I've got this tumor in my optic pathway and I can't see, why they didn't understand why she couldn't just correct her vision with glasses. Have you in going to school and whatnot, how have your peers or your friends or your teachers come to understand your diagnosis and understand the nature of your visual impairment? Because again, you wear glasses right now, I can see, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it makes it possible for you to see all the things that you need to see. So maybe just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's actually quite funny. I wear glasses for a completely different reason. I have strabismus, so one of my eyes will cross over slightly. So a lot of people assume that I wear glasses because I've lost my vision, but actually my vision, like all the nerves that have died, it's completely black on that side. So it cannot be restored. So I can't see anything on like that. So it's not like my right eye is completely black, so I'm not able to see anything at all. And it can be hard to describe to people. So I've tried to like draw it out and been able to make like a simulation of it because it's hard to explain to people if you don't know. So making images and kind of drawing is how I've done it. But I noticed whenever I did lose my vision, a lot of people would distance themselves from me because I think they did not know what to say. So more of I've explained how it is to newer people and like newer teachers and everything. So I haven't really had to explain to people I used to know as much because even then it's still kind of hard to understand when you've not been in the same situation.
Of course. One of the things that I understand that you've done as a consequence of losing a significant portion of your vision is that you've learned Braille and you've had a teacher who's helped you with that. Can you just tell us, because it's a remarkable experience, I'm sure, to learn a completely new way of reading and writing. And you mentioned that the relationship with your Braille teacher was really, really special. Maybe you could just tell us about what that process was like, because of course most of us who are seeing have no idea how one goes from the pattern of dots that represents Braille to something that you can interpret as language. I always find myself in the elevators touching, closing my eyes and touching the Braille under the numbers and just marveling at how people learn how to turn that into their way of seeing language and numbers.
Yeah. So last year I missed my first semester. So when I started learning Braille, it was the second semester of my freshman year. And at that time, I was having Braille lessons every day as one of my classes. So I have met my teacher, Mr. Barry. So he's from Ventura Unified. And I would say for learning Braille, it's kind of like how if you imagine the letter A, you can see it right now. Like you can just see the letter A. It's kind of like that for me, where when I'm imagining A, R, all these other things, I see it in Braille as well, because it's just like a code where there's just a certain formation for each letter. So it's kind of just a lot of memorization and, learning a new language, but learning the formation, it seems like it'd be really hard, but I think because it was way more necessary for me, I was able to learn it so much quicker. My brain was just like, you need to learn this, so it's time for you to remember this stuff. So that was very nice. But for my Braille teacher, it's been nice because he works as my accommodations teacher as well. So whenever I need to switch into a different class or I need extra accommodations for this, I ask him and we'll figure out what I need. And he's just my number one person to help me with all I need, which has been really amazing. I'm so glad I've been able to meet him.
Well, it sounds like a very special relationship. As you progress through school, can you tell us a little bit about how having this brain tumor and the consequences of it have started to shape your thoughts about things that you might be interested in doing in the future? Or because one of the things that I was struck by when we talked was just how positive and forward looking you are, and would love to hear about how you think about the next steps in school or beyond school, and some of your hopes and dreams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually kind of thankful that I've been able to go on this path now. So before my tumor, I was wanting to go into some sort of art or design. Not really sure, still really not decisive on what I wanted. But after I lost my vision and after coming back to school, I picked up a class for landscaping, which I never would have done beforehand. So I'm able to do something similar of designing a landscape and, having more tactile plants and everything, which is really fun to do. But it's been a lot more interesting to find a different part of myself that I didn't know I had. So that has been my number one excitement. But for consequences, I would say just I've had some memory loss, which can sometimes be frustrating, but it's one of those things that I can work around. I just have to find the solution. So if I'm forgetting where I need to be sometimes, I'll just set myself a reminder. So I haven't really had too many consequences because I kind of just, nothing's been terrible for me because I can just work my way around it.
Well, having occasional memory loss and not knowing where you are is also a symptom of being 55 years old. So I would say that you're certainly par for the course here. And I have a feeling that even on your worst day, you're probably a lot sharper than I am on my best day. So my hat's off to you. I wanted to leave it to you, and we talked about this yesterday. I didn't know if you had any questions about the work that we do at Day One or things related to the science of brain tumors that you wanted to ask. If not, we can turn it to Beth and Stacey to see if they had any additional questions for us.
Yeah, I was really curious, just not for the whole idea, but what got you into wanting to learn more about what you're doing now?
Oh, it's a great question. And actually, one of the things that you said yesterday, Audrey, struck me and reminded me exactly why it was that I decided to go and focus my career on pediatric brain tumors. One of the actually, when I was in college, I had very little desire to become a doctor. As a matter of fact, I tried everything that I could to not become a doctor, and I failed at that miserably. But what I ended up studying was philosophy, and one of the areas of philosophy that I was really most intrigued by is an area known as phenomenology, which is, it has to do a lot with how we experience the world. And it's remarkable. We have a brain, right? But then we also have a mind, and they're not they're certainly not the same thing. And there's a huge amount of philosophical literature to help, that spends a lot of time contemplating the differences between what's your brain and what's your mind, and how we come to understand the world around us and perceive the world around us. And I've always been fascinated by this. And as I mentioned, I failed miserably at not going to medical school. I ended up in medical school and ultimately in residency for pediatrics. And when one of my very first experiences in pediatrics was working in a part of the intensive care unit where patients who had neurosurgery were coming after they had their operations. And I saw a lot of brain tumor patients. And what really struck me about patients who have brain tumors is you have the disease, right? You have the actual tumor itself, but then you have the effect on the brain, and then how that impacts so many other aspects of a person's life, including, and this is one of the things that you mentioned yesterday, is what you see or what you sense. And you've talked about some of the visual phenomenon that you described, very clearly, some of the visual phenomenon that you experience. And to think that there's something that happened in your optic pathway that causes you to see things in a very different way, or have visual experiences that are not perceptible to the rest of us, I think was reminded me why this particular set of diseases was always so interesting to me, because it was two things at once. It was trying to address a growing tumor, but also trying to understand the impact on a growing brain, and for hard problems to work on for the rest of your life. I could think of none better. So that's really how I decided that this was the patient population that I really wanted to spend really the rest of my career trying to help. So I, like I said, if you, I consider myself the most successful failure in the world at my initial instincts to figure out what I was going to do with my life.
That's very cool. Yeah, I really consider your work as a valiant, super amazing job. So I'm really interested. I was really interested. So thank you for letting me know.
Oh, of course. Well, I find that patients with brain tumor, children with cancer are just a remarkably special group of human beings, and their families and the whole community that surrounds them. But for me, I really do carry a torch for children with brain tumors, and I find the just remarkable resiliency, bravery, and inspiration in people like you, Audrey, and how you were given a challenge that certainly you or nobody asked for, but then you get through it, and you look forward, and you march ahead, and you adapt, and you're clearly on a path to go out in the world and find something that brings you joy and happiness, and makes a difference. And it's very hard to not look at that and just go, wow. I wouldn't know if I would have it in me, but to see it in you is just heartwarming, and I can tell by the chat, because it's scrolling by, that so many other people see that in you as well. So thank you for being such an inspiration for me and for my team and the whole group at Day One.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both, Audrey and Sam, for your honesty and for that great interview, and for the inspiration and wisdom that both of you provide. And Sam, to the millions of ways Day One is making a difference, thank you. And Audrey, we know your leadership and wisdom. We can't wait to see what we do, and hopefully we'll see you both in Montana